Hello.
Shavua
Shavua Tov.
Tov.
Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua Tov.
Hello, Shavua Tov.
Those of you who were in shul today, I'm sure everybody, noticed that the Haftorah, it's not a Haftorah that we read all the time because many years Parshas Truma falls during Parshas Shkolim or Parshas Zochor. So we replace the regular Haftorah with the special Haftorah. But we laned, since it's Adar Aleph, we laned the regular Haftorah, and it was the building of the Beis HaMikdash by Shlomo Melech. And we had learned that parak in detail. So I think it was, I heard from a number of people that it was more meaningful for them because we had learned it together. And as it is with many Haftorahs, we're going to start tonight Parak Yud Ches, one of the most famous parakim in all of Tanakh. Haftorah for Parshas Kisisa. Parshas Kisisa, of course, is known for the parsha that describes the Chet of the Egel. And this parak describes the confrontation between Eliyahu Navi and the Nevi'ei Abal on Har Carmel. So usually Chazal try to choose a Haftorah that's similar in context with whatever is being discussed in the Parsha. So this is a long parak, and it'll probably take us a few weeks to get through it. Posuk Aleph.
Can I get a little bit of background just before we start?
Please.
All right, so basically, I just want to give some context to this whole scenario. So in about the early 12th century BCE, and right now, this story is presumably taking place in the 9th century BCE. So in the 12th century BCE, the ancient Near East, or the Middle East, experienced what is known as the Late Bronze Age collapse. And basically, at that time, there probably was a famine of some sort that extended over the region, and many of the ancient kingdoms of that period collapsed. So the centralized authority in Egypt collapsed. The Kassite Babylonian kingdom collapsed. The Assyrian kingdom shrunk to become like a rump state. The Hittites collapsed. The Mycenaeans in Greece collapsed. So all these major powers collapsed. And what you got in its place over time were these much smaller states, such as Israel, Judah, Aram, Sidon. And so what would happen in these types of scenarios is kingdoms would engage in what you call like marriage treaties. So what you have here is basically the son of the king of Israel marries the daughter of the king of Sidon. And so this is an alliance. And what the advantage of that alliance is that if they are threatened by another power to the north, such as Aram, you have a natural ally. And it's significant, I think, that Achav, the son, marries the daughter of Sidon, because that indicates that Israel was more powerful than Sidon. Because typically, like, let's say with the Egyptians, if somebody wanted to make an alliance with Egypt, they would send their daughter to Egypt, not the other way around. Egypt was not sending its princes elsewhere for marriage alliances. So Sidon and Israel align over here. Now, one of the things archaeologically that they find is that we think of like when we learn these stories, it's like, oh, they brought in this Baal or this Avodah Zarah that was completely foreign to Israel. But the reality is a little bit more complicated. So if you go through Shoftim, it's very clear that they did not get rid of all the Canaanim and all the nations that were living in Eretz Yisrael. And so you have culturally, you still have Baal worship in that area. And culturally, the people of northern Israel that were not Israelite were very similar to the nations around. So linguistically, uh, everybody's speaking a language that's something close to Hebrew. So they're really pretty close. Now, uh, Baal is attested in archaeology. There's something that's a famous, what's called the Baal cycle, which tells the story of the god of Baal that was found in Syria. And so that's kind of like the setup for this whole story. So you have Baal, the fight between Eliyahu and the priests of Baal, but Baal was something that was worshipped in that region, and that's the setup, I think, for this.
Absolutely. So I'm going to read something from the Musar Nevi'im. Ikir achet shall also adore hayemasha avdu la'abal. The chet of Achav and Izevel is that they came to worship this Baal. Ki mashe midu es agolim b'mei Yerovam lo haya achet ko gadol. If you remember, this all started with Yerovam putting up these calves, preventing the Jewish people going to Yerushalayim and worshiping these agolim. Modi Isa b'Sefer HaKuzari, Rav Yudah Levi, in the year 1200, 1300, wrote the Sefer HaKuzari. He says, Tzarech shenavdil ben siyas Yerovam uven siyas Achav havdol gdol. The Kuzari says we have to distinguish strongly between Yerovam and his group versus Achav. Ki ovdei abal hem ovdei avodah zara legamrei. Worshipping Baal is mamish avodah zara. V'chein Omer Eliyahu. We're going to see in this parak. Im Hashem hu Elokim l'chu acharav. V'im Baal l'chu acharav. The Jewish people are going to have to make a choice. It's either Hashem or Baal. Uvavodat hagalim lo diber Eliyahu. Eliyahu doesn't say a word because the Agolim are still there. But Eliyahu doesn't attack Klal Yisrael because of the Agolim. V'zeu ki siyat Yeravam la'Hashem Elokei Yisrael yukol maseim. Their intention was to Hashem. Umasha yalehem ha'neviim hayu nevi'ei Hashem. The nevi'im that existed around Yeravam were regular nevi'ei Hashem. Aval nevi'ei Achav hayu nevi'ei Abal. The nevi'im that we're going to call the bnei nevi'im of Achav, they had nothing to do with Hashem. They were nevi'ei Abal. Yehu, we're going to learn in Melachim Beis, shehishmidet beit Achav et Abal Yisrael. Melech Yehu, who destroyed the house of Achav and the Baal, which we're going to learn in Melachim Beis. But you notice, as Eglei Azov shel Yeravam lo hisir. He didn't remove the golden agolim of Yeravam. Zeu shosei ha'egel harishon v'siyas Yeravam ubalei abomis upesel micha lo hayu mechuvanim kulam rak lelohei Yisrael. Their kavana that these were just intermediaries, but they were really worshiping Hashem. Achim aveira shechayav enoisem misa, but they were still doing an avera that were chayav misa. Kemishin oseas achoso litzorech. Somebody marries his sister for political reasons or for lust, you're put to death, even though there's a reason for it. The person eats treif. But like when he eats beef, he's very careful about shchita. He doesn't eat dam. This is all the words of the Kuzari. So we see that there was a distinction, significant distinction, between this world of Yeravam and the Agolim that he put up, and the turn that Achav had done to the Nevi'ei Abal, which, as Shaya said, was imported from Sidon, because Izebel was a princess of Sidon. Now, again, to set the scene, Eliyahu had been given the mafteach of rain. And Eliyahu there had now been a drought for 3 years. No rain falling. And last week we learned all the various midrashim about the mafteach of Tchias HaMesim, and that's the story when Eliyahu revived the Ben HaTzorfatit because he couldn't keep two of the keys. He only could have one key at a time. So here, Vahi Yamim Rabim, these are the years of the drought. It was not 3 complete years, it was 18 months. Say Chazal. 3 months at the end of 1 year, a full 12 months of the next year, and 3 months of the following year. Udvar Hashem hayal Eliyahu b'shana shlishis lemor. Hashem speaks to Eliyahu, Lech hera lachav, go appear to Achav, v'etna matrap nedama, and I will open up the gates of rain. Now, when Eliyahu tried to revive the child, he needed to give up the mafteach of Geshem back to Kodesh Baruch Hu. So now the Geshem is coming directly from Hashem.
Ernie, can I just add something? It's Hashem who beckons to Eliyahu to bring on the rain. It seems like that Eliyahu really doesn't have compassion for the status of Bnei Israel. He's not coming to Hashem and saying, well, maybe it's time to bring the rain. It's Hashem who has to beckon to him. So here is Eliyahu, who is, I think, isn't his purpose to really bring Musar and to talk to the people, to state that it's time. If you leave the Avodah Zarah, I will bring the rain back. He's not doing that at all. It seems like he's hiding because he's afraid of Achav, and it's Hashem who has to beckon to him, to tell him that you have to bring the rain. The people are suffering, but there's no compassion on Eliyahu's part, and he's not making an effort to. I think his goal would be to provide Musar to Achav and to Bnei Yisrael, and he's not doing that.
I think the withdrawal of the rain was the Musar, and in fact, the Meforshim say Ki mipnei harav shavu rabim b'tshuva. The people started doing tshuva, and this is why Hashem now comes, because of the tshuva that's being done. Heitivu darcheim. There were also 7,000, the Radak says there were 7,000 Jews who had never bowed down to the Baal. And
I think that wasn't the response of they're not having rain. I think they believe they did not serve Baal. So it was independent. The drought did not impact on them. It was something that they...
Yes, on the 7,000, but the others,
right. The others
who are now doing tshuva may have been impacted by them. So some say that they didn't do tshuva, and the return of the rain by Hashem is because of the 7,000 who did not worship the Baal. The Barbanel says, you remember, Eliyahu brought this drought because of the Musar that he tried to give to Achav about. Achav said, look, they rebuilt the city of Yoshua. Yoshua made a klala, right? And Achav didn't recognize that the sons of the guy who built it were being killed for that reason. And then he said, look at, and he's the Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, V'im lo tishma, if you don't listen to the words of the Torah, I'm going to hold back the rain. You see, we have rain, Achav claimed. So by withdrawing the rain, Eliyahu was teaching Achav a lesson that Hashem does run the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to bring the rain in a way that Achav would still see that the Shavua that he made to Eliyahu was intact. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu now is telling Eliyahu, go appear to Achav.
Well, he wants to make sure
So that
people
you'll create
see-
this, that eventually you're going to daven, and the Geshem is going to come through your tefillah, because we're going to see this process in this parak is going to lead to a tefillah. So it's not that the shvua that Hashem made to Eliyahu that you're gonna have the keys to the rain, that's going to be fulfilled, but now through the tefillah it's going to be changed. By the way, what I said before about the 3 years, the Medrash Rabbah, Vayikra Rabbah says, Shloisha Chadoshim Brishona, Ushloisha Chadoshim Bachroin, Ushnemasar Be'emtza, Rishmonasar Chadoshim. Why is it called Yomim Rabbim? Because it was Yomim Shel Tsar. There was pain, there was drought, there was famine. You know, bad times go by very slowly. Good times go back very quickly. So the 18 months appeared like it's, very slow. Pasuk Beis. Vayelech Eliyahu laros el Achav. So Eliyahu seeks out Achav. He follows Hashem. Varav Chazak b'Shomron. The Shomron is the capital city. And this is, again, part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan, that it should be very serious there so that they should daven for rain. Vayikra Achav el Ovadyahu asher labais. We're introduced to a new character, Ovadyahu. And Ovadyahu is in command of Achav's palace. And the Pasuk says something unique. V'Ovadyahu haya yarei es Hashem ma'od. Ovadyahu feared Hashem greatly. Some say Achav is calling Ovadyahu for advice, what to do about the famine. And some say that's why it mentions that Ovadyahu was a Yirei Hashem, and therefore Achav figured that maybe because Ovadyahu, there'll be bracha.
Ernie, may I interject?
Please.
It's very interesting that it does talk about that he's Yirei Hashem. Achav is well aware of the power of someone who is Yirei Hashem. He's fully aware of that because
Achav.
he's expecting.
Achav. You mean Achav.
Achav is aware,
Yes.
because he's hoping of Abijah hire him because he is Yirei Hashem, and he wanted the blessings comparing to Yaakov, the blessings that Yaakov brought to the house of Lavan, Yosef, the blessings that Yosef brought to Potiphar, and he's hoping because he is the Yirei Elokim. So Achav is very fully aware of a relationship, what a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu can bring, and he's questioning why his house is not getting the blessings that the other Sadiqim have brought onto their homes. So I think there was the other homes there was a curse. I think there was a curse in addition. I don't know the curse was brought on by I guess by Eliyahu. So that's interfering with Avadia's capacity to bring bracha to his home.
Achav is hoping that with the schus of Ovadia,
Yes.
will bring bracha. Now there is a general rule many times in the Torah, where when you mention the name of a tzaddik, you mention his praise. Like it says, V'Avraham hayo yiyeh legoy gadol v'atzum. It mentions Avraham's name. Rashi there says, Zecher tzaddik livracha. Hoil v'yiskiru baruch. There is this concept that when you mention the name of a tzaddik, you immediately mention his milas. And the same thing is happening here by Ovadyahu. It says in the Gemara Sanhedrin Lamed Tes Amud Beis, on this pasuk of V'Ovadyahu Haya Yereas Hashem Me'od, Amrav Yitzchak, B'Yakov Ksiv, Nichashti, V'Yivracheni Hashem Biglalecha. By Lavan was blessed because Yaakov was there. By Yosef it says, V'Yivarach Hashem is based on Mitzri Biglal Yosef. The house of Potiphar was blessed because Yosef was there. So, but Beisa Dehu Gavra, Lo Haya Mivrith. But the home of where Ovadia was living, meaning Achav's house, was not blessed. Shema Lo Yirei Elokimato? This is the Gemara asking. Is it because Ovadia was not fearful of Hashem? Yatasa Baskol V'Omra V'Ovadyahu Haya Yirei Hashem Me'od. That this phrase in the pasuk was Mamash Baskol, because you might have had a Havamina that not like Yaakov and not like Yosef, who brought bracha to where they were, you might think that Ovadyahu was not a tzaddik. No, Ovadyahu is a tzaddik. It's Beisur Shel Akov that's not Mezuman lebracha, says the Gemara. Omra Vava Gadol Shenemar B'Ovadyahu Yoser Mima Shenemar B'Avram. Greater what was said about Ovadyahu than what was said about Avram. The ilu b'Avram lo ksiv ma'od, uvavadyo ksiv ma'od. This thing of Haya Yirat Hashem by Avram, it doesn't say ma'od. Amrav Yitzchak, mipnei mazacha Ovadyo nevius, mipnei shechbi mea neviim b'ma'ara. We're going to see in the next pasuk that Izabel, the wife of Achab, was trying to kill all the true prophets to Hashem. And Ovadyahu hid 100 prophets. Now, we'll see, he split it up, 50-50. Amr Abelazar Yaakov Lama. He learned it from Yaakov, right? Yaakov also divided up his cap into two, in fear of Esav. Now, we have a Navi in Treyasar. One of the books of Nevi'im is called Treyasar, which is a collection of 12 Nevi'im. One of them is Chazon Ovadia. Ko amar Hashem Elokim le'edo. And we read this, by the way, the Pasuk V'alu Moshim Lar Tzion Lishpot et Har Esav is the Nevuah of Ovadia. Why Dafka Ovadia is the Navi that's prophesizing to Edom? Amrav Yitzchak, Amra Kodesh Baruch Hu, Yavo Ovadio Hadar ben Shnei Rishoim, V'lo lamad mimaseim. Vayinabe al Esav Arosha Shadar ben Shnei Tzadikim V'lo lamad mimaseim. Ovadiyahu lived with two Rishoim and didn't learn from their ways. We'll give a nevu on Esav, who lived with two tzaddikim, Yitzchak and Yaakov, and Esav didn't learn from his environment. Then there's a machlokes. Amar Ephraim Makshat Talmidosh Rab Meir. Ovadia ger Edomi haya. Ovadia himself was a convert, and he was an Edomite. V'hainu de Amri Inshi minei ubei. That means he is part of it, and he's making the nevuah against them as well. Okay, so this is our introduction to who Ovadia is. Now, Chazal seem to understand that the Ovadio in Treyasar is the same Ovadio that's working for Achav. Even Ezra asks a question. Even Ezra says we don't know the door of Ovadia and Treyasar. We can't say that it's the same Navi as the one in Sefer Melachim. Because one of the arguments he says, why did they just say Ovadio was a Yiras Hashem? They sort of said he's a Navi Hashem if he's the same Navi as Treyasar. the Abarbanel pushes it aside. And he says that it's no riot that he was not the same Navi as in Treasar. Maybe while he was living in the house of Achav, he didn't have Ruach HaKodesh come down on him at that time, because he was connected at that time to Rishoim. Okay.
Ernie, there's a medrash that I'm seeing in the Meyam Loes that says that Elio had 4 Talmidim, including Elisha, Ovadia, Micha, and Yonah. Now, I have no idea in terms of the Treyos or when they lived, whether they lived at the same times or Eliyahu lived an extended life. And this is a medrash. Do you have any understanding for chronology of their ages?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it fits. I mean, Ovadia and Elisha, that fits. We'll get to that medrash soon. The Treyasar Nevi'im are all not at the same time. They're a collection of Nevi'im over a period of time. Take that. Some of the credit that's given to Ovadia, it says in Shmos Rabbah, Bo re'ei kol mi sheyesh bo osher, v'nosein stokol aniyim, ve'enu alav beribis, malin alav kilu kiyam mitzvahs kula. That Ovadia didn't borrow money because he gave money to all these Nevi'im who didn't have money. And Ovadia had money because he was the executor of Achav's estate. And all of that money he used for tzedakah because he was mefarnis all these Nevi'im.
But he was able to take money from Achav's estate to do this? Was that?
And he borrowed money from Yehoram ben Achav. In order
Oh,
to
he borrowed money. He didn't take
borrowed money as well from the son of Achav, which was needed for the Nevi'im. And he didn't pay ribbis. Yehoram loaned beribis, but he didn't pay it. Okay, so we've laid the ground for who Ovadia is. And the Pasuk says, Pasuk Dalet, Vahi bachrisi zevelas nevei Hashem. She was on a genocidal war to kill out all the Nevi Hashem. Vayikach Ovadia mea Nevi'im. He took 100 of Nevi Hashem, vayachbiem 50 ish b'mara, v'chilkalam lechem v'may. He divided them. The Mara only held 50, say Chazal, and provided food for them. This is one of the skusim of Ovadia. Vayomer Achav al Ovadia. Achav meets Ovadia. Lech ba'aretz el kol mainei hamayim ve'el kol anchalim. Achav says to Ovadia, we need water. Go do a search for the springs, the rivers. Ulai nimtza chatzir unchayei sus v'fered v'lo nachris ma'beima. And we'll find water for our animal stocks. We need animals, beasts of burden. And why was he sent to look for grass and water for the behemoths and not for animals? So the Malbim brings a Medrash Rabban Noach. Kishe'ein b'nei adam re'uyim l'kshamim, yored hamatar b'shvil behema. Sometimes rain will fall for the schus of the animals. Ki la'adam ha'bechira. A human being has choice. Nitin l'gmul v'oinish. There's schar v'oinish for a human being. So if he's not worthy to have rainfall, the rain won't fall. Lo kein habal chaim shalahem bris krusa. Brisa tivi shelo yikrusu mineim, says the Malbim. That the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, there's a covenant that Hashem has with them that their sustenance will not be cut off. And maybe through this bris, the rain will fall. And therefore, and it'll fall, and the human beings will sort of benefit because of what's benefiting the animals. That's perhaps how the Malbim explains Achav's shlichus to Ovadia to find water and food for the animals. The Kilas Yaakov says that if you merachem ala brios, Hashem will have rachmanis on you as well. Maybe through their maisim, Klal Yisrael were not roy that a nace should occur to them. So that's why this concept came into the heart of Achav to help the behemoths, because of this principle that's brought in Gemara Shabbos Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Beis. Kol hamerachim ala brios, merachim ala b'nei hashamayim. If you're kind to the animals, if you're kind to the brios, Hashem will be kind to you as well. So even we see something else, because Barbara was bringing up some things about Achav. With all the evil of Achav, he was mitztayer on the source of Yisrael. And he himself went along with Ovadia looking for grass and water for the animals. So Achav is not a one trick pony. There's a lot of things about Achav that are going to be, we'll see tonight if we get there, some other interesting things about his generation, which is praised beyond any other generation. So Achav had Rachmanis on his people, and he's looking to help them. Therefore, pasuk Vav, Vaychalkol lahem es haaretz lavar bo. Ovadia and Achav divide the territory that they're going to look for. Achav alach b'derech echad levado, v'Ovadiah alach b'derech echad levado. The East are going to check out various areas with their feet. They didn't go with animals. Achav, they say, didn't want to rely on another person. They would take the grass. They would take the water. The only person he had trust in is Ovadia. Vayi Ovadia b'derech, v'nei Eliyahu likraso. In Ovadiah's travels, looking for this water and grass, who does he meet up with? Eliyahu Navi. Vayipol he recognized him. Vayipol panav vayomer hata ze Adoni Eliyahu. Are you my master Eliyahu? And the Kilas Yaakov says that this hata ze, are you the Eliyahu that is preventing rain from falling and causing all this pain to Klal Yisrael? And basically asking him to be merachim on them. Now, Bernie just told us that in the Oitzra Midrashim, it says, Arba Talmidim Ayulo Eliyahu, Micha, Yona, Ovadia, and Elisha. So it's his Rebbe. Now you notice, he calls him Eliyahu. So it says in Shulchan Aruch Yoredeya, Osir likros l'rabo bishmo. You may not call your Rebbe by his name. Bein b'chayev, bein b'moso. Whether he's alive or after his passing. Now, if you say Rebbe Moiri, Ploini, Mutter, but you can't call him by his name. Now, says the Shach over there, that which the Ramah said that you're allowed to say Rebbe Moiri Ploini, Mutter, that's Shalom B'fanov. Ava B'fanov Otzer Lahazkir Shmo B'Shumothem. When you're in his presence, you may not use his name. You have to say Rebbe Moiri, or just Rebbe. You can't use his name. So how can Ovadia call Eliyahu just by his name? Can you give me that thing again? He said Adoni. So the Chomas Oinech says that's the Torah for his fact that he was Rebbe. Now, and yet he called him Eliyahu. So the Chomas Oinech against the Shach wants to say that you can't call him by his name as long as you've added a title, and even b'fnei Arav. So it's a problem with the Shach. So they ask on the Shach because of this. Even there's an example in the Torah. It says Adoni Moshe Kla'en. when the Eldad Umeidad are being misnabe b'machaneh, and Yoshua requests for Moshe, Adoni Moshe claimed there's another raya. He called him his master, Adoni Moshe, and he used his name Moshe, which is again, it's a problem for the Shah. Okay. We're not going to
You're not explaining why it says ha'atozeh. That's a question. Why is Ovadia asking, are you my master Eliyahu? If he
So some
knows him
say-
as Rebbe, why is it a question?
No, so he was startled. He was startled. And I gave a midrashic approach where he said, is this you, Eliyahu, that is preventing the rain from falling? That means it's like almost a poetic license statement. But of course he knew him because we're saying that it was his Rebbe. Pasuk Ches. Vayomer lo ani. Eliyahu says, yes, I'm Eliyahu. Lech emor ladonecha hine Eliyahu. He wants Ovadia to go to his master Achav to say, here I am, Eliyahu, I want to meet up with you. You notice Eliyahu doesn't use the name of Achav. He doesn't say the name Melech. And he's your master, not my master. After the event of Hara Carmel, we're going to see an episode where Eliyahu is in front of the chariot of Achav, and there he shows cover to the Malchus. We're going to see that Achav does not protest against what happened at Hara Carmel. And we're going to see later on, there's a confrontation with Eliyahu and the 450 prophets of Baal. And he doesn't have a problem with what happens to the Vei Baal. I'm not going to reveal what happens to them. So later on, Eliyahu is moided to the Malchus. But now he doesn't. Now, Ovadyahu is not that happy with being given this charge of finding Achav and telling him that Eliyahu wants to meet with him. Vayomer mecha tosi. I mean, what you're going to cause me to get killed? Ki ata notenet avdecha biyad Achav lamiteni. If the Achav's been looking high and low for Eliyahu Navi, and you're going to send me now to say, oh, here's Eliyahu Navi? Let's read the next pasuk and then we'll explain. Chai Hashem lokecha. He takes a shvua. Im yesh goyim mamlacha asher lo shalachani shalom v'akeshcha. There is no place on earth that Achav didn't send me to find you. V'amru ayin, I said, we haven't found it. V'ishbiyas hamamlacha v'sagoy ki lo yimtzaeka. He caused other nations to take oaths that they're not hiding him. Now, we see that Achav, by spending all this time looking for Eliyahu, he understood that Eliyahu was the cause of the holding back of the rain. And it's because of Avodah Zarah. Yet, Achav is not doing tshuva. So again, showing the great sin of Achav. And the Radak wonders, how is it that Achav couldn't find Eliyahu? Tzorfat, right? We had the episode of the woman, the Almana, the Tzorfati. That's very close to Sidon. And why wasn't Eliyahu found? So some say the Almana hid him, and the Almana didn't reveal that Eliyahu was there. Or maybe the whole city hid him from the Shluchei of Achav.
So Ernie,
Chazal say,
Mm.
B'doira shalachav, lo hayu dil toirim, bali lashon hara b'Yisrael, v'lo golu b'nei Yisrael es makom shel Eliyahu l'sari Achav. There was a special midah during the time of Achav that people did not say lashon hara, and therefore, even if people knew where Eliyahu Navi was, they didn't reveal it because during this special door, there was no Lashon Hara. So much so that it says in the Gemara Megillah, Yud Aleph Amad Aleph, Ton Rabbana, Shloisha Molchu Bekipa. 3 kings ruled over the whole world. Says Rashi, Tachas Kol Kipas Arakia. Eluhain Achav, Achashverosh, Unevuchadnezzar. Where's Achav? Chai Hashem Elokecha, Im Yesh Goy Umamlacha Shelo Shalach Adoni Sham Levakecha. Now, if Achav was not ruling over all of these nations, how was he able to make them take a shvua that they didn't have Eliyahu with them? The Gemara learns from there that Achav had dominion over the whole world. So, the Radak says, Im yesh goy umam, that's near Eretz Yisrael. You know, maybe the surround, like what Yeshaya said about the surrounding kingdoms are, but not the whole world. Even in Eretz Yisrael, he was not ruling over the whole country. How could we say he was king over the whole world? So he had battles, especially with Aram, and he took many cities from them. And he also built up very strong fortresses in Shomron. One of the reasons he was so successful in his battles because of this midah, that in his door the people didn't say Lashon Hara. Other people ask, the fact that he made the nations of the world take a shvua, they don't have a law of taking a false shvua. So some say that they also took oaths seriously, not necessarily that it was a mitzvah min Torah. We see Avimelech took oaths with Avram Avinu, Kisham nishbu shnehem. So it was a practice that was followed by non-Jews as well. Again, we see this duality during the time of Achav, that there were some aspects of Klal Yisrael that, I mean, to say of a generation that no one spoke Lashon Hara. Pasuk Yud Aleph. So Ovadiyahu says, you're sending me into the jaws of death. I'm now gonna inform Achav that here's Eliyahu. V'ayani elech meitach, v'ruach Hashem yisach al asher lo eda, ubati lagid la'achav lo yimtzah achav regeni. If I tell Achav that here's Eliyahu, and he tries to find you, and he can't find you, he will kill me. V'avdecha yarei es Hashem minurai. He says to Eliyahu, I'm a Yirei Hashem. Are you allowed to tell somebody who you are? That it means, if you're a Talmid Chacham, can you introduce yourself as that? So it says in Gemara, the Dorim, Samach Beis Amud Aleph, Amar Rava, Shari leili inshi loidi nafshe ba'asher d'liyadilei. When you come to a new community and they don't know who you are, you're allowed to introduce yourself in terms of who you are regarding your credentials. And the fact that Ovadiyahu said, Vavadcha Yirei Hashem Minurai, Efshar D'Eliyahu Lo Yadilei, says the Ran. And the Rosh says that the reason why you're allowed to introduce yourself that way, if you are an Ish Torah and people are mezalzel you, they're going to get punished. So you're allowed to introduce yourself with your titles and credentials so that they won't get punished. Now, the Rashba brings this episode that you're not, it says in Pirkei Avos, Al tasei mator lizgar behem v'lo kardum. You're not allowed basically to profit from your Torah status. It says in Baba Basra, lo shelo rotzel isparnes b'kavod Torah. Rav Tarfon nitztar kol yom av hitzilatz b'kavod Torah. There are a number of examples throughout Chazal that Gedolim didn't want to benefit from their Torah. So how does Ovadio now sort of introduce himself this way? So the Rashba explains, regularly you shouldn't benefit from the fact that you're a Talmid Chacham, because that's violating what it says in Pirkei Avos, that you're using the Torah to dig with. But if there's going to be a bizayon for his covenant, the covenant of Torah, and they're going to do things to the Talmid Chacham that they're not supposed to do, then you're allowed to reveal to them who you are. It's not the covenant of himself that he's requesting. It's the covenant for the Torah. So since he was fearful of Adyo that Achav was going to kill him, that's one of these examples where it's going to hurt. It's going to be further oynish that he's killing a Talmid Chacham, so he was allowed to reveal who he was. The Rosh explains the same way. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Halahu gadladuni et asher asiti barog Izevel et vi Hashem. I hope it was informed to you, Elio, of what I did, that Izevel, in trying to kill out the vi Hashem, v'achbim vi Hashem, mea ish, 50 ish b'marav achakem lechem b'mayim. I saved 100 Nevi'im, divided them up 50-50 in caves, and I'm providing food and water to them. I want to read another Yerushalmi, Peah Daf Aleph, Amar Abba Barkana, Doira Shel David Kulam Tzadikim Ayu. In the generation of David HaMelech, they were tzaddikim. However, Ayidei Shahaya Lehem Dil Toirim, there were Lashon Hara nicks there. Hayu Yotzim B'Milchama V'Hayu Noiflim. In the time of David, they would go out into battle and they would lose soldiers. It says in Tehillim, B'nei Adam Shineim Chanit V'Chitzim U'Lashonam Cherev. Their tongues were swords. Therefore, they were speaking Lashon Hara about Nafshi B'Soch Levoim. Ze Avner v'Amasha Shayim Levoim B'Torah. Avner and Amasha were like lions of the Torah. Who was saying Lashon Hara about them? Doeg V'Achi Toifel. Were Lashon Hara nicks. And then they had, remember, the Zifim, who were those people who told about Shaul where David was. So, but also Shomer David Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Olam. Mashchinas Chol Lered Be'eretz Sol Yishchinas Rabbi Beineon. Then David HaMelech understood why the Shechina was holding back from dwelling, because of they were Bali Lashon Hara. Says the Gemara, Valdor Shalachav Oivdei Avodah Zarah Hayu. The generation of Achav worshipped Avodah Zarah. Ayidei Shlohayu Lehem Dil Toirim. But there they didn't talk about other people. Hayu Yordim L'Milchama V'Noitzchim. They went into battle, they didn't lose one soldier. And it
Quite
says,
amazing.
based on this pasuk, it says, Vachakem lechem umayim. Now, why did he have to say both? Im lechem lama mayim. Im mayim lama lechem. Ela melamed, shahayu amayim kashim lo lavi yoyser min alechem. It was harder to bring water to them than the lechem. And many people knew that Ovadia was keeping these Nevi'im alive. It's a difficult secret to keep, but nobody spoke about it.
It's quite amazing, don't you think, Ernie? I guess the Ben Adam Lachavero is really sanctified, in spite of it's amazing, no?
Despite the Avodah Zarah, they were very successful in battle.
Right.
They did not reveal the secret that Ovadia was keeping the Nevi'im alive.
Right.
Now, of course, we have to mention the Chofetz Chaim on this. The Hagdom of the Sefer Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim was famous before he wrote the Mishnah Berurah because he wrote a Sefer called Chofetz Chaim. Whoever wants to live life, it has to refrain from speaking Lashon Hara because of the pasuk. Now he explains why Hichmira Torah kol kach b'zeh ha'avon. Why is the Torah so makpid about Lashon Hara? Mishum de Lashon Hara ma'ora harbes and mekatrik agodol al Klal Yisrael. Somehow we don't understand it. Speaking Lashon Hara brings prosecution in Shamayim against Klal Yisrael. He brings the Zohar in Parshas Pekudei. Like snakes. You're talking about the Satan who is persecuting in front of Hashem, Klal Yisrael. Why? By telling Lashon Hara, you're basically persecuting your friend. The kavana of the person speaking it is lekatrik al chaveru, is to bring some kind of bad on his friend, whether he's speaking truth or false. So the dibur creates prosecution against Klal Yisrael. Says the Chofetz Chaim, the belochet aloshen lo niten lo hakoach hahu lo dia lemalas toyavas ne'adam litvot din aleim. If it wasn't for Lashon Hara, the Satan would not be able to list all of our averos in front of Hashem. So even though the door of David was tzaddik, yes.
You could give the shir to Rabbi Pinter. He would have another reason. It was not only Simchas Torah. There was a lot of Lashon Hara going on for Klal Yisrael before the war. So it was huge against the politicians and everything.
Okay.
True.
Okay. And just I would say the opposite. The way to cause our soldiers to win in battle,
Right.
this is the media that we have to work on.
Right.
Listen to this.
That's why you need
remember
that.
remember in Mitzrayim, it says Vayira Moshe Vayomar Acheno Dadavar. When Moshe killed the two Mitzrim, what was Moshe afraid of? Rashi says there, because people are going to tell Paro about it. He was worried that there were Jews who were going to be maser on him, and that if that is the case, if there were Lashon Hara nicks, that would prevent the Geula from Eretz Mitzrayim. So the reason why we're not Goyel, why we're not redeemed, is also because of this kind of Lashon Hara. Especially in times of battle. That's why they brought this, the mice of David HaMelech, that they went out in battle and they would lose soldiers. Why? The Satan works when there's a period of danger. That's when the Satan is dangerous. When we're b'shas sakana, that's when you have to stop the Satan. And we've just learned that fuel for the Satan is Lashon Hara. And there was no fuel for the Satan during the time of Achav. And that's why they won in battle. I want to conclude with the following. This is the Iayamu who says it. Heicha de'ein malshinim zelzeh. When we're not speaking about each other, and we're not revealing secrets and telling things, Kulam ba'achdus, and we're all ba'achdus, uvischus zeh yinatzchu b'milchama. That's the secret of winning in war. Heicha de'yesh pirud, lo shaykh nitzachon. When there is division, there's not going to be victory. Afilu b'tzadikim. He brings a Rashi from Parshas Noach. V'chiezu kasha, shel dor mabul or dor shel afloga. We know there were two generations. The generation of the flood that were wiped out, and the generation that built the Tower of Babel. Eilu lo pashtu yad be'ikr. The dor mabul, they didn't strike out against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. the pasuk there says they did chamas. They stole from each other. They did immorality, sexual immorality, but not against Hashem. In the Tower of Bavel, Elu pashtu yad beikar, kiviyachol ilachem bo. Why did they build the Tower of Bavel? To go fight Hashem. Elu nishtafu. The ones who didn't fight Hashem, but were fighting amongst each other, drowned. Elu lo nevdu min ha'olam. The people of Tower of Bavel, we are descended from them. They were not destroyed. Dor ha'mabel hayu gazlanim. V'haisa merivim beineim lekach nevdu. If it's adam ben chavero, forget about it. The elu hayu noagim ava v'reus beineim. Shenemer safa echat udvarim achadim. In the time of the Tower of Bavel, there was harmony. There was unity. They all spoke the same language. For that reason, they were saved. Gadol shalom over everything. Again, it's just to strengthen what Walter said, that everyone's asking in what time, what do we have to do? So tonight we learned two things. We have to move ba'achdus. We have to have one common goal, one common thought, and less lashon hara. Let's stop by pasuk Yudalid, and
Beautiful.
continue.
Very important message.
Any other comments that anybody has?
Yeah, you said Obadiah lived in the time of Yonah. Yonah was his student. Wasn't that little boy who got revived? Didn't they think he was Yonah?
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see the Almana. I think we mentioned that. Yonah, she was the mother of Yonah ben Amittai.
Right.
So it makes sense. You're saying
His
from a
student.
chronology point of view, it makes sense that they're all there in the same generation.
Okay.
I want to welcome
Welcome,
Ronnie
Abrams.
Abrams. I see a new person signed on to the Navi shirt, so welcome. And next week at 8:00 as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Shabbat
much.
tov.
Shavua tov.
Shavua tov.